You know that weird moment when you realize the person you see every night, in the most boring, lonely way possible, suddenly becomes the only thing keeping you from losing your mind? That was me, stranded in a mountain village so remote I swear the internet barely worked, and my only regular contact was the graveyard shift baker. Yeah, the baker. Let me rewind a bit. I moved to this tiny town, call it Frostwood, because it's literally carved into the side of a mountain, where the air smells like pine and the snowdrifts can trap you inside for days. I took a job here at a small lodge, mostly to escape my noisy city life, and, honestly, to figure some stuff out. The kind of place where the roads aren't plowed for hours, and the nearest Starbucks is a 2-hour drive away. Isolation, with a capital I. Anyway, since I'm not exactly a morning person, I usually stayed up late after my shifts, wandering the quiet streets, or just sitting by the single open shop we had at night, the bakery. Yes, a bakery open from midnight to dawn. It's odd, I know. Turns out, this bakery is a lifeline for truckers and the few night owls scattered through the village, plus a bunch of locals who work those crazy early shifts in logging and whatnot. That's where I met Jamie. He's the guy behind the counter, tossing dough and pulling fresh bread out of the oven while the rest of the world sleeps. I'll admit, at first, I kinda thought he was just another local oddball. Quiet, a bit jaded, and way too into his work. But there was something about the way he moved around that tiny kitchen, like he belonged there more than anywhere else. And his smile? Jamie was there, like always, tossing dough with that calm focus that made the whole place feel like its own little world. But something was off. His usual easy smile was tighter, like he was holding something back. "Hey," I said, coming up to the counter. "Slow night?" He shook his head, but I caught the quick glance toward the back room, like he was thinking about something else. "Not really, just stuff." "Stuff?" I asked, leaning on the counter. "I'm all ears." Jamie hesitated, then wiped his hands on a towel and leaned forward. "Look, I don't usually talk about this much, but there's some complications with the bakery. Family stuff. And it might mean I have to leave Frostwood soon." I blinked. "Leave? But why? You said you like it here." He shrugged, but the shrug didn't reach his eyes. "I do, but sometimes liking something isn't enough. My dad's been having some health issues, and the bakery's been a family thing for generations. If I'm not here, it might close. Or worse, get sold. I'm stuck between staying and watching things fall apart or leaving and hoping things will work out. That hit me harder than I expected. I mean, I didn't know much about Jamie beyond the bakery counter, but I could tell this wasn't just some casual problem. It was a crossroads. "I get that," I said slowly. "Family stuff's messy. You have to do what's right for you, but yeah, I get it." He looked up, eyes searching mine. "I'm sorry. I know you're just passing through, but this place, this job, it's all I've got." I was quiet for a moment, then said, "Hey, you don't have to apologize. And you're not just some random guy the first run into at 2 a.m. I'm here too. Maybe we're both stuck in this weird little corner of the world, trying to figure stuff out." Jamie gave me a small smile, and for a second the tension in his shoulders eased. Maybe, over the next few nights, things changed. Our conversations got deeper. We talked about the village, his family history, why he loved the night shift despite the loneliness, and what scared him about leaving. I opened up too, about why I ran from the city, what I was trying to find, and the mess I'd left behind. One night, I showed up with a bottle of cheap whiskey I'd smuggled from the lodge. Jamie laughed and said, "You're officially the worst midnight customer," but he poured us both a small glass. We sat in the tiny back room, the oven still warm, talking and laughing until the first hint of dawn slipped through the window. It was one of those rare moments where the world felt honest and simple, except it wasn't going to last. A week after that night, the village got hit with a blizzard. Not just a snowstorm, the kind of storm that turns roads into walls of white and cuts off any chance of leaving or getting supplies. The lodge where I worked went into lockdown mode, and the bakery stayed open because, well, people still needed bread. Jamie and I found ourselves alone for hours, the storm raging outside, the power flickering but holding. We talked about everything and nothing, the kind of easy chatter that comes when you're safe in a small room with someone who's slowly becoming important to you. At some point, Jamie got up and pulled out a photo album from under the counter. "You want to see something?" he asked. I nodded, curious. He flipped through the pages, old pictures of the bakery back when his grandparents ran it, shots of his dad in his younger days, kids playing in the snow, the village as it was decades ago. The photos felt like a window into a history I never knew, a side of Jamie I hadn't seen before. "Why do you keep this?" I asked. He hesitated. "Because it's all I have, and because sometimes I wonder if I'm just holding on to the past, hoping it'll tell me what to do next." I reached over and touched his hand, surprising both of us. "Maybe you don't have to choose between past and future. Maybe you can build something new." Jamie looked at me, eyes wide and a little unsure. "Is that what you're doing? Building something new?" I shrugged, feeling the warmth of the moment. "I don't know yet, but I'm starting to think I want to find out." The storm finally eased the next day, but the feeling of being trapped together in that tiny bakery stayed with us. We started spending more time outside the graveyard shift hours, walking the snowy streets, sharing stories and quiet moments that felt like they belonged to a different world, one where maybe there was more than just surviving. But even as things were starting to feel real between us, I knew Jamie's family problems weren't going away, and I wasn't sure if this place, or us, could handle what was coming next. One evening, just as the sun was dipping behind the mountains, Jamie looked at me and said, "I have to tell you something. Something I haven't told anyone else." My heart skipped. "Okay." He took a deep breath. "The bakery, it's not just in trouble because of my dad's health. There's more. Someone's been trying to buy it out. Someone who doesn't care about Frostwood or what it means to us. They want to turn it into something else entirely." I stared at him, the weight of that hitting hard. "And you?" I'm trying to fight it, but I can't do it alone. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just some quiet mountain fling. This was real, messy, complicated, and maybe the start of something that neither of us expected. I didn't know how it would end, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't walking away this time. Not from Jamie, and not from the place that had started to feel like home. I could feel my chest tighten, the weight of what Jamie just said settling in like a stone. Someone trying to buy out the bakery, turning it into something else? It made my stomach twist, not just because I'd come to care about the place, but because I cared about him. The quiet nights, the conversations, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about the bread, all of it felt fragile now, like a snowball on the edge of a cliff. "Who is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jamie ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. "Some developer from the city. Big money. They want to build a resort or a ski lodge or something. They think Frostwood is ripe for the next big thing, and the bakery's on the land they want." I felt a cold rush of anger, but also sadness. This place, this tiny mountain village, was full of people who didn't want to be part of the fast world. They wanted to keep their lives simple, even if that meant living with isolation and crazy snowstorms. "So what can we do?" I asked. "Have you talked to anyone else? The town? The local council?" Jamie shook his head. "I'm still figuring that part out. It's complicated. The developers have money and lawyers. We have, well, not much." I leaned in, lowering my voice like we were plotting something secret. "Then we fight. We get the town on our side. We rally people. You've got history and heart on your side, and I'm not just here for the bread." He laughed softly, the tension easing for a moment. "You're really full of surprises, aren't you?" "That's me," I said with a grin. Mysterious city guy with a knack for awkward pep talks. Jamie smiled, and there it was, that little spark that had hooked me from the start. But beneath that, I could see the worry, the weight of responsibility that felt like it was crushing him. The next few days turned into a blur of plans and whispered meetings. Jamie and I started reaching out, first to a few locals we trusted, then to the town council. It was slow going. Some people were skeptical. Some just didn't want to get involved, and others were scared of what change might bring, even if it was protecting something they loved. Meanwhile, Jamie kept up his graveyard shifts, baking those loaves and rolls that filled the bakery with warmth and hope. I helped where I could, delivering flyers, making calls, doing late-night research on zoning laws and property rights. Somehow, in the middle of all the chaos, we found moments to be just us, sharing coffee before the ovens fired up, stealing quiet walks in the snow, laughing at terrible jokes no one else would get. One night, after a long day of meetings, we found ourselves alone again in the bakery's warm glow. I was sitting on one of the stools, exhausted, when Jamie came over and sat beside me. Without saying a word, he reached out, brushing a strand of hair off my forehead. The touch was gentle, but it sent a jolt through me. "I don't want to lose this," he murmured. "Not the bakery. And not whatever this is between us." I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. Me neither. It was the first time Jamie said the words out loud, and suddenly everything felt more real, more terrifying, and more exciting all at once. But then, that same night, my phone buzzed with a message that shattered the fragile calm. It was from someone in the village, a friend of a friend, warning me that the developers had already started making moves behind the scenes. Offers to buy properties, threats of legal action, and rumors that things were escalating fast. I showed Jamie the message, and the look on his face was a mix of disbelief and determination. "We need to act now," he said. From then on, the fight intensified. We organized community meetings, gathered signatures for petitions, and even held a fundraiser bake sale that brought almost the entire village out, despite the freezing weather and the mountain chill. It was during one of these late-night meetings in the community hall that I saw Jamie in a new light. Watching him speak to the crowd, his voice steady and passionate, I realized just how much this place, and the people in it, mattered to him and to me. After the meeting, we stepped outside together, the night crisp and clear. The stars above seemed impossibly bright, and I felt a rare kind of peace. "Do you think we can really win this?" I asked. Jamie looked at me, eyes reflecting the starlight. "I don't know, but I'm willing to try, because this is home, and now you're part of that too." He reached out and took my hand, his fingers warm against mine. It was simple, but it meant everything. In that moment, I knew that whatever came next, the battles, the heartbreak, the unknown, I wasn't alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, the mountain village had given me something I never expected. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot, but with Jamie beside me, the future felt a little less scary, and a lot more worth facing. The nights after that felt electric, charged with this mix of adrenaline and exhaustion. We were up late, planning, talking, baking, and sometimes just sitting side by side in the bakery's warm kitchen, letting the quiet settle between us. It was funny how the bakery, a place that used to feel like just a pit stop for my late-night hunger, had become the backdrop for something way bigger and way more personal. One night, after a particularly long day chasing down signatures and rallying support, Jamie made this ridiculous batch of cinnamon rolls, like the kind that look way too fancy for a tiny mountain village. He handed me one with a smirk. "You owe me for all the trouble you've dragged me into." I laughed, biting into the gooey, warm roll. "Worth it." He leaned against the counter, eyes soft. "You know, if this all works out, maybe we can turn the bakery into more than just a place that wakes up when the sun goes down." I raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" Jamie shrugged. "A cafe. Have it open during the day too. Bring some life back into Frostwood. Something for the locals and visitors alike. A place where people can come together, not just for bread, but for community." I was surprised at how much I liked the idea. Frostwood wasn't just a backdrop for my self-imposed exile anymore. It was a place with a heartbeat, one we were trying to protect and maybe even revive. But as hopeful as we were, the pressure kept mounting. One afternoon, I got a call from Jamie, voice shaky. "They sent a letter. Official notice. The developers are starting legal proceedings to evict us." I felt my stomach drop. "What about the town? The council?" "Some are with us. Others, not so much. Money talks." His voice cracked a little. "I'm scared, man." I took a deep breath, trying to keep it together. "We've come this far. We'll figure it out." That night, we stayed late after the bakery closed, sitting on the floor amid flour sacks and empty trays, just talking. I didn't expect any of this when I took the graveyard shift. Jamie said softly, tracing patterns in the dust on the floor. I thought I was just baking bread, keeping the family tradition alive. Didn't think I'd be fighting this hard. I reached out, grabbing his hand. Sometimes life messes with your plans, and sometimes that mess is what saves you. You saved me, Jamie. I'm not going anywhere. His eyes met mine, and in that quiet moment, I realized how deep this was getting. I wasn't just a visitor anymore. I was part of this fight, part of him. We started spending more time together outside the bakery. Snowy hikes through the woods, stolen coffee breaks at the local diner, and evenings curled up by the fire at my lodge when the storm wasn't trapping us inside. One night, after a long hike that left us both winded and flushed, we sat on a fallen log overlooking the valley, the sky smeared with stars, and the distant lights of Frostwood twinkling below. Jamie broke the silence. Do you ever think about what comes next? After all this, I shrugged. Honestly, I was just trying to survive before you. Now, I want to see where this goes. Maybe building something here with you. He smiled, that half-shy, half-certain smile I'd come to love. That sounds pretty good. But just as the hope began to feel real, the worst happened. A few days later, the bakery was broken into. Nothing major stolen, but the mess was clear. Flour spilled everywhere, ovens left on but cold, signs of someone trying to intimidate us. Jamie was devastated. They're trying to scare us off. I hated seeing him like that, vulnerable and angry. I wanted to do something, anything, to protect him and this place. We reported it to the local sheriff, who was sympathetic but realistic. These developers don't play fair, he said, but the law's on your side for now. That night, back in the bakery, Jamie and I stayed late, cleaning up the chaos. As we worked, the tension between us shifted. We'd been holding back a lot, fear, frustration, hope, and now, with the adrenaline crashing, it all came pouring out. Without thinking, I reached for him, pulling him into a hug. We'll get through this. He leaned into me, and for a while, we just stood there, holding on. Eventually, he whispered, I'm scared, but with you here, it feels like maybe we're not alone. I kissed the top of his head. Never alone. The fight ahead was going to be hard. Long days in court, village meetings, and endless uncertainty. But as we stood there, wrapped up in each other's arms, in that little bakery on the edge of the world, I realized something. This was more than just a struggle to save a business. It was about building a life, with someone who made the cold mountain nights a little warmer and the quiet hours something worth waking up for. No matter what happened next, I was in it with Jamie. And that felt like the biggest victory of all. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of court dates, strategy meetings, and endless paperwork. I'd never thought I'd spend my nights poring over legal jargon, but here I was, trying to understand every detail of property law while Jamie baked loaves of bread to keep the bakery's doors open. It was exhausting, but we both knew we didn't have any other choice. One evening, after a particularly draining day at the courthouse, Jamie and I grabbed some takeout from the only late-night spot in town and headed back to the bakery. The place was quiet except for the hum of the ovens cooling down and the faint smell of yeast lingering in the air. We sat on the worn-out stools by the counter, sharing a plastic container of spaghetti that was way too greasy but tasted like a feast after the day we'd had. Jamie sighed, running his fingers through his hair like he was trying to shake off the stress. I don't know how much longer I can do this. I looked at him, really looked at him, the tired lines around his eyes, the way his shoulders seemed to carry the weight of the world. You're stronger than you think. He gave me a tired smile, but I could see the doubt lurking behind it. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just fighting a losing battle. I reached across the counter and grabbed his hand, squeezing it gently. You're not alone. We're in this together. Whatever happens, we face it side by side. For a moment, the world outside the bakery faded away. Just Jamie and me, two people caught in a fight bigger than either of us, but somehow finding strength in each other. A few days later, we got the news that shook us both. The court had granted a temporary injunction, halting the developer's plans for the time being. It wasn't a victory, not yet, but it was a chance, a breath of hope. We celebrated in our own quiet way, baking a small batch of chocolate chip cookies and sharing them over steaming mugs of coffee in the early morning hours. Jamie laughed when I tried to make a toast with my chipped mug. "Holding on," he said. "Holding on." I repeated, feeling the warmth not just from the coffee but from him. But just as things seemed to be settling, the village felt the ripple effects of the fight. The developers started showing up more often, driving through town in their shiny cars, talking to local landowners, making offers that were hard to refuse. Rumors spread like wildfire, and the community began to fracture under the pressure. One afternoon, I was walking down Main Street when I heard someone muttering behind me. "City boy thinking he can save our bakery." I turned to see a man I'd never met before, older, with a look that was equal parts suspicion and disdain. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my tone calm. "I'm just trying to help." He scoffed. "You don't belong here. This is our home, and we know what's best." It stung more than I expected. Jamie had warned me that not everyone would be on our side, that change scares people, but hearing it firsthand made it real. That night, I told Jamie about the encounter. He pulled me into a tight hug. "Ignore them. They don't see what we see." I wanted to believe that, but doubt crept in like the cold mountain air, seeping through the cracks in the bakery windows. Then came the night that changed everything. We were closing up when the bakery's phone rang. Jamie answered, and his face went pale. After a few seconds, he hung up and looked at me, eyes wide. "That was the sheriff. There's been an accident." My heart dropped. "What kind of accident?" He shook his head. "My dad. It was bad. They don't know how soon he'll be out of surgery." I didn't know what to say. Jamie's family was everything to him, and now this. We drove through the snowy streets to the small hospital in the next town over, the silence between us heavy. When we arrived, Jamie's mom was already there, and she gave him a weak smile that didn't reach her eyes. Hours passed in a blur of waiting rooms and whispered updates. Jamie stayed by his dad's side, holding his hand, muttering words I couldn't hear. I tried to be strong for him, but inside, I felt helpless. The next morning, the surgeon told us that Jamie's dad would need a long recovery and that the bakery might have to close temporarily if Jamie needed to stay to help. Jamie looked at me, the weight of the world pressing down. I don't know what to do. I took his hands in mine. "You're not alone in this either. We'll figure it out, together." Over the next few weeks, Jamie split his time between the hospital and the bakery. I stepped in more at the bakery, trying to keep things running while he was away. It felt strange at first, manning the ovens in the middle of the night, but it also gave me a new appreciation for what Jamie did every day. One night, as I was kneading dough, I caught a glimpse of myself in the bakery's window, the quiet mountain village stretched out behind me. I thought about how far I'd come, from running away from my life to standing here, fighting for a future I never imagined. When Jamie was home, we found small pockets of time for just us. Late-night talks over coffee, walks in the snow under the moonlight, moments where the fight and fear faded away. There was one night, after the bakery had closed and the village was wrapped in silence, when Jamie pulled me close and whispered, "Thank you for staying." I smiled and kissed his forehead. "I'm not going anywhere." He looked up at me, eyes shining with something tender and fierce. Me neither. It felt like a promise, and in a place where everything was uncertain, promises meant everything. The road ahead was still full of unknowns, the legal battles, Jamie's family's health, the future of the bakery. But in that moment, with the cold mountain air outside and the warmth of the bakery around us, I knew we had something worth fighting for. Because sometimes, the most unexpected places and people become the home and love you never saw coming. Months passed. Jamie's dad slowly got better, the bakery survived the worst of the legal battles, and the village, scarred but stubborn, started to rally more strongly behind us. The developers eventually backed off, for now, facing too much community resistance and legal pushback. It wasn't a dramatic victory, no grand headline or celebration, just a quiet relief that things might actually hold. One cold evening, after a long day working side by side in the bakery, Jamie and I sat on the small bench outside, wrapped in scarves and watching the snow gently fall. The streetlights cast a soft glow on the quiet village, and I felt this rare peace settle over me. Jamie took my hand in his, fingers lacing naturally with mine. You ever think about how weird all this is? How a city guy like you ended up in a mountain village, fighting for a bakery at midnight. I laughed softly, squeezing his hand. I used to have no idea where I was going. Now I think I found a place, and a person that's worth sticking around for. He smiled, eyes warm. Me too. We sat there a while, not needing to say much. Just two people who'd found something unexpected in the quiet hours, the kind of connection that feels easy and real, even when everything around you is messy. The bakery stayed open during the day now, a little community hub full of laughter and fresh bread. Jamie started planning that cafe he talked about, and I found myself volunteering for everything from late-night shifts to town events. Frostwood wasn't just the backdrop to my escape anymore, it was home. One morning, after a snowstorm cleared the mountain roads, Jamie and I made our usual rounds, delivering fresh bread to neighbors. We stopped by a small park, the world still sparkling with frost, and he pulled me close. "I'm glad you stayed," he said simply. "Me too," I replied, feeling something settle deep in my chest. The truth was, this all started as a way to run away, but it led me to something I didn't know I needed. A place to belong, and someone to belong with. And sometimes the quietest places hold the loudest moments. Those little flashes of warmth and hope that change everything. As the sun peeked over the mountains, we stood there together, hands entwined, ready for whatever came. Not because we had all the answers, but because we had each other. And for me, that was more than enough.